I'm out here at another pump station, and the longtime viewers will know I've been here before. This is a vacuum lift station. We also call them dog houses because of the little enclosure over top of them. And you never know if you're going to be attacked by bees or raccoons or the hinges are going to snap off again. Yeah, I'm sure that's fine. Anyway, the issue here is that pump 2 will not be called to run in auto. It's currently off. Let's see what pump 1 does. Pump 1 runs in hand just fine. Let's see about 2. Yeah, that's definitely not primed, but a lot of times they don't prime until they're called to run in automatic. So I'm going to have to get this thing to run in automatic and see if it actually primes. I'm going to slap the selector switch back in auto and go take a look at the pump controls. That old transformer, that thing's kind of cool. Thankfully, the control cabinet is stainless, so it has withstood the years. Let me know in the comments if you're still rocking the state-of-the-art Gorman-Rupp bubbler control system. Good God. Let's open this thing up and see what's going on. I love to hate on these old things, but they are pretty reliable. They just suck because you don't have real air compressors. You're stuck with these little fish tank aerators that you can't purge the bubbler system with. I'm going to start by putting the alternator in position 2 to hopefully put pump 2 in lead, but honestly, you never really know if it actually correlates because it depends on how they wired it. Someone has written that this comes on at 3.5 feet, and one of the cool things about these old Gorman-Rupps is you can check the set points pretty easily. You just hold the little button, tells you the off and the on. Now, this is telling me that this comes on at 3 feet, at least output A, which I believe is the lead output, but I guess we'll find out. I'm sure these things were pretty cool back in the day. I mean, you get 4 fully programmable relays. And we're only using 2 because we only have 2 pumps, and this is the primary system, so we don't need transfer and low level and all that junk. But I can tell you from experience, those other 2 relays come in handy if the first 2 take a crap on you. And speaking of getting crapped on, I figured I'd show you all the wet well, except that's not the wet well. That's an ARV and a valve.
Dumb.
Stupid.
Sorry about that. Let's try the one with the little picture of a guy dying. That's probably the right one. There it is. There's the old wet well. That's where all your poo goes. They do have a float backup system. That's why there's a float tree down there. And while we were waiting, we did reach 3 feet, and output A did come on, which is lead pump, so that sticker was wrong. But unfortunately, it called for pump 1, because I didn't know which load was which, because whoever wired this decided to screw me over. And then I saw the other alternator down here. I kind of went down that road. I'm like, am I even on the right, using the right alternator? But that was for secondary. So it is this alternator. After messing with it, I noticed that the load lights were like barely lighting up. They're kind of blinking and being weird. Now this fish pump up here does vibrate a good amount. That's why it's on these little rubber band shock absorber things. And the cord was sitting against the relay. And as soon as I touched it, the other relay came on, which was very suspicious. I think it was actually the alternator that called for that relay. It wasn't that relay that was the problem. But the cord is literally like eating into the alternator. So that might have something to do with what's going on. I don't think this alternator likes extreme vibration. For those of you who have no idea what this is or think I'm talking about a car part, it's just an old school alternating relay. In this case, it's just switching which pump runs first every single cycle. That way you have an even amount of hours and an even amount of wear on each pump. You don't want just one pump doing all the work because you may never find out that the other pump has an issue until it's too late. Luckily, I do keep a small stock of old school alternators because we have about 1 million of them. You just got to make sure it's the right amount of pins. They make 8 pin, they make 11 pin. There's a lot of different styles, blade styles, all that junk. And you also want to ensure that they are, in fact, the same thing. They don't have to be the same brand, but they have to be wired the same. I have had these blow up before because they weren't wired the same, especially the 8-pin version. Also, always check the voltage. Thankfully, this one's identical, so I don't really have to worry about all that. Plug it in, and our light is shining bright. Doesn't mean it works, but at least the light's bright now. But this time, it finally called for pump 2 to prime. And I have never been so grateful to see poo inside a clear bowl because these vacuum lift stations are notoriously finicky. There's just so many extra components. You got the vacuum pump pulling the poo up to the main pump. You got solenoids, you got sensors. It's just a giant pain in the butt. Now, while I was doing all that, the level did get pretty high and it transferred to secondary, but I transferred it back to primary and that was good to go. Now, earlier I was complaining that load 1 and load 2 might not correspond to pump 1 and pump 2. Now, you can change that. You just got to move 2 wires around. But I will warn you, you got to tell the people that actually run these stations because they get used to a certain way. They get used to them being wrong. And if you just go changing things and don't tell them, they're going to be pissed. You should always consider the end user because it's not always you. Now, the last thing I did was I made sure that the alternator actually alternated. And for that, I just let the well rise a few times, let it pump all the way down, and every time the lead pump shut off, it would alternate which pump was lead. So the alternator is working just fine. I did take apart the old alternator just to see if there was anything fun inside, and as per usual, I didn't find anything. One of these days, I'll actually open one of these, and like something will be fully melted and gross and disgusting, but so far, I have had no such luck. But here's the inside for anyone who's curious. It does look like it got a little wet. There were almost like little watermarks on it, but it may have nothing to do with what happened. I still think it had its brain shaken a little too hard by that fish pump wire being up against it, but you know what? We'll never know. All that matters is it works now. And I managed to not destroy the 50-year-old fiberglass cover over this vacuum lift station, so that's a win. I'm sure I definitely won't be covered in fiberglass splinters the rest of the day. But that's it for now. See you on the next one.